right, and we are live. All right, guys, welcome to Extermination Radio. I am 40 Ounce, and I'm here with the Homer Simpson guy, Fonze.
What's up, y'all?
All right.
I think Jimmy predicted the wrong Fonz earlier. He said you were gonna have a dual Australian ticket tonight.
Oh, maybe he thought it meant Alfonso. People call him Fonz too.
Some people are gonna be disappointed.
Nah, you're a cool guy. I'm really surprised. Almost every episode, I've done like 25 episodes of this already, and I managed to fuck up the intro every fucking time, except for this time. I managed to do a pretty good job.
I'm not gonna lie. Speaking of your intro, man, I feel like every time I hear it, my ears have just been violated in like 5 different ways.
Oh no! How dare you? Why would you say something so mean? I don't know what it is. The thing is, I've done so many of these episodes already, but still, every single time, I get like a little nervous each time. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, just the fact that it's live, you can't make mistakes. You don't want to be stumbling over your words and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I just like I'm like, it's like we're official now and we have to do it all right. But yeah, I don't know. I get nervous. It's hard to like. It's also like hard to just talk to like other adults, you know. Like
sometimes it can be.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I was, to give you an example, I was walking my dog today, this morning, or this afternoon rather, and I was walking up and down Marshall Street, which is like this it's kind of like this cool marketplace near where I live. There's like a lot of like convenience stores and bars and laundromats and all kinds of stuff. And there's all kinds of people there. And I was walking my dog, and I noticed there was like a lot of like latchkey kids, like just a bunch of like kids that are just like ages like 5 to 13. They're all like hanging out together, and there's nobody watching them, and they're just like they're just being kids, you know. They're climbing on stuff, and they're like swearing, and they're calling each other pussies and shit. And these kids are like their shirts are all wrinkled, and they have like long greasy hair, and their like shoes are untied. And I'm like, who the fuck's watching these kids?
They must be Italian like me.
I don't know, but yeah. But anyway, I was walking past these kids, and they happened to see me walking my dog, and like maybe like 3 out of the group of them showed up, and they like ran around circles around me, and like they immediately started like smushing my dog's face together and petting it and being like,
I would be so nervous over that.
It was a very weird thing. My dog was even really dumbfounded because I don't think she's ever had like a human interaction like that. But like yeah, there was no initiation or anything.
But yeah, and you as the owner, I mean, you don't know what your dog is how it's gonna react in that situation.
Yeah, there was no initiation or anything. They just like showed up and immediately just felt comfortable petting my dog. And so these kids were petting my dog, and then one of them looks at me and he says, "I used to have a dog, but I don't anymore. He died. He got in a car accident." And I was like, "Wow, man, that really sucks. I'm sorry to hear about that." And like before I could finish my sentence, he ran off and like went to hang out with his other friends. But I don't know anything about the kid. I don't know his name. I don't know how old he is. I don't know where he's from. But like within like 5 seconds of meeting him, he told me something like really personal about himself. And like when you like,
they say actually the best way to break the ice with somebody is to, you know, especially like, you know, like let's say you're trying to, you know, meet a chick, you know, and you want to break the ice, and you want to get her to talk about herself, you know, instead of having like, you know, her guard up quite so much. You say something embarrassing about yourself, something stupid that you did once. You know, just kind of open yourself up there to be turned down in a way.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
You'll find that a lot of times people identify with that, you know.
You're right.
Done mistakes.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel too. Like if you tell somebody personal about yourself, you can kind of like that's kind of like grounds to like create a pretty strong relationship with that person. And that's like I've seen like videos on YouTube and stuff about like how to make friends as an adult, and it's kind of true because there's people that I deal with all the time where you have the same conversation pretty much every time you see them. They're just like,
"Oh yeah,
hey, how you doing? Good. What are you up to today?
Why are you working today? How come every time I see you, you're walking around? It must be nice." Shit.
Yeah, and they're just like, "How you doing? Good. Well, what are you up to? Nothing really. All right, well that's cool." And then you just kind of move on with your life, and that's pretty much the entire. Yeah. That's like the whole depth of your relationship with that person. But this kid just like told me something like really. He told me about this like traumatic, emotional story about this dog he had.
Part of that is also just the fact that none of us are really perfect. And as much as, you know, I mean, I don't want to really talk so much about, getting into the whole subject of like the talents and what me and Goat were talking about on the forums, because the nature versus nurture type of thing, argument that's been beaten to death.
Yeah.
But I mean, as an adult, like,
I'm sorry, I think I'm losing you.
Yeah. As an adult.
Oh, okay, I hear you now.
You can't. You can't kind of like bottle yourself up like that. You have to open yourself up. You have to just tell people a little bit about yourself. You have to make them feel important. One of the most important things that you can do whenever you're trying to meet new people or make friends as an adult is remember their name.
Yeah.
And it's something so simple and so stupid. And I mean, I'm terrible about remembering names, but if there's a name that I want to remember, I remember the old rules. Say it 3 times in the conversation before you leave.
Yeah. There is a lot of like powerful tools and stuff.
All right, see you later, 40 ounce. I mean, just simple stuff like that helps you put the name with the face.
Yeah.
And putting the name with the face and showing the person that you remember them. And the next time that you see them, you're like, hey, 40 ounce, what's up? It shows them that they're important to you and that you fulfill that role in their life that nobody else does. I mean, even if it's just as a friend or just as like a random person,
yeah,
it makes you special, and or it makes you feel special in that person's eyes, and it's a very motivating and nice thing to feel.
Yeah, there's some like powerful like little like mind tricks and stuff, little tools you can do. Like if like for example, if you meet somebody named Jim and he tells you his name is Jim and he's like kind of a skinny guy, you can kind of give him a nickname like Slim Jim or something, and you don't have to call him that, but you can remember him by like how he looks, like remember his name that way. Like I do stuff like that sometimes in my head.
Nicknames also come down to kind of the presentation of how you do it. Like if you kind of messing with them a little bit, like oh Jim, all right, hey, what's up, Slim?
Yeah.
just kind of mess with them, and I mean a lot of people will like that sort of stuff, and it can be tough. Like I'm sort of the type of person, I've always believed in the old saying. I forget if it was like Mark Twain or Abraham Lincoln or somebody who said it. Better to not say anything and be thought of a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Wise words.
I feel that way a lot of times when I meet new people, and that like I'm not always willing to like just open up and joke with people and start screwing with them right off the bat. I like to talk smack to people. I mean it's fun. I like it when people talk smack to me. I guess I tend to gravitate towards those type of people just because they keep you on your toes and keep you sharp, and it's kind of an important thing.
Yeah.
And of course it's fun too.
Yeah.
But
well, I have that
at the same time you meet somebody and you don't know them.
Right.
And you don't know that you're not going to step over that line and say either say something to piss them off or even just kind of ruin that first impression or even the second impression. I mean, you never know when you're going to need that connection later on down the road. Networking is a very important thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I've had like pretty good and long conversations with you, and it's really interesting because we have like pretty like deep conversations about like doom mapping and all kinds of stuff. And
I know you need to be a fish.
Yeah. Before we started the show, we were talking a little bit about like mobile gaming and stuff, like using like doom apps and stuff for your phone. And you were talking about D-Touch.
Oh yeah.
I don't have any Doom apps on my phone. I did find like a Game Boy Advance emulator that has Doom 2, but it runs really shitty on my phone. But
well, I mean that's probably just from the fact that it's a Game Boy 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, probably. Yeah, so you were saying D-Touch is really cool, and you were telling me a little bit about how like it you can like load PWADs and stuff in it, and you can test your own maps in it. That's pretty cool. You can do that on the go. It's a pretty fascinating thing.
Like I said to you off the air, a big part of being just part of the Doom community and not just being a hermit is playing the PWADs. I mean, everybody and their mothers played through the iWads a million times. I mean, yeah, you can play through the iWads. It's fantastic. They look like they were made in 93 and 95 or 94.
Yeah.
But the Doom community isn't the iWads. It's the PWADs that people are making now. And, I guess we can kind of segue into something else that, I wouldn't mind talking about. That was one thing that I really liked about writing This Week in Doom. We're over at
Oh
Doom
yeah,
Live Station.
that's right. I forgot you did that.
Oh yeah, man. That was it was a really fun, really just awesome thing to do, man. It was great, and also just a great thing to do. Like as far as in the networking aspect of it, like I got to play a few. I got to play a few notable releases before they were released to the public, and it was
Oh,
really
nice.
cool being able. Yeah, man, it was really cool being able to play stuff. Like Shadow of the Woolball was one of them. It was really cool being able to play them, and just before they were released to the public, and getting to write something up, and I gotta do an interview with Soundblock Spare.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Super Spare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do an interview with him, and that was really cool. I mean, it would have been great if I would have, I guess, had the time to continue it. But and This Week in Doom, it takes a lot of time to do the, just the typing up of everything. And
Yeah, it's a bit of a commitment.
Never, I mean, it's not so bad to do it once. You do it one time, and you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't so bad. You do it 2 or 3 times, and you're like, yeah, I could do this for a while. But after 20, 30 times of writing that thing, every single week, man, that
becomes a
that
job.
gets to you. Well, the problem is that Doom is a hobby for us. I mean, and it's the same reason why I would never rag on any of the programmers, like GraphZell or Gez, or even KB1 as he's trying to do the whole the new PR Boom plus plus.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna rag on them for anything that takes them a long freaking time to do, because of the fact that this is a hobby, man. And programming, or writing This Week in Doom, or with Bloodshedder hasn't put out a new New Stuff Chronicles in a while, and I'd like to ask him about what's going on with with that, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of people already have. But the thing is it's a lot of time to do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it'd be really good if a few people from the community got together and kind of cooperated on it.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand
And
that. I understand that completely. It's very. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the New Stuff Chronicles. I don't know. Well, I guess we could talk to Bloodshedder about it, but I'm sure it has something to do with the new software. It's just everything, just kind of migrating everything into the new, how Doom World has changed and everything.
Well, so, and life changes too. We don't know what Bloodshedder's situation is. Maybe he just had a kid or something. Who knows? I mean.
Yeah, we don't know. It pays to be nice.
Time for it anymore.
Yeah, it pays to be nice and like talk to people and like get to. I mean, what you've told me, that's pretty cool. You got to play new WADs and like interview pretty special people, and that's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. Writing This Week in Doom was great, and it was also just great experience for me because I mean, I told you off the air, but I was a hermit for years before I ever joined the Doom community, and I was mapping for myself for years. And I mean, in a way, it was nice because when I joined the community, I had a leg up on my familiarity with software and building maps and that type of stuff. But at the same time, my maps weren't up to the standard of the community when I first joined the community, even though I had been mapping for over 5 years. I mean, that's a long time to be just building maps.
Yeah.
And but those maps weren't up to the community standards. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable with sharing them today. Like, I mean, unless we're all gonna sit here and laugh at them, like.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy and I were just talking about that earlier today about how like it's tough to like kind of, if you look at a lot of like really popular mappers, not a lot of people know what their first map is, and it's just.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to start your mapping career somewhere, and if your first maps are shit, so be it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your maps are always going to be shit. You're gonna develop your skills over time, and people will pay attention to whatever your best stuff is.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. And I would like to say, as far as it from my experience, it'd be nice if people learn from my example. I mean, I know that there's a lot of registered lurkers, on Doom World, and people who are unregistered and have just been lurking for a long time and have been building maps. And if they listen to this, I would really like them to know that. I mean, I built maps for 5 years, and I built some. I learned to do some really sweet stuff on my own. But at the same time, your mapping career doesn't really start until you join the community, and until you start seeing what the community is producing and what the community's standards are, and start matching your stuff up to the standards. Because even though I'd been mapping for so long, all of those maps, all of them, were not up to the community standards, and they wouldn't be good to share today. I mean, unless I went back and redid them, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't be good. They wouldn't be. I wouldn't even play them today.
Yeah. That's
I mean, and I hate to say that about my work, because everything I've built is special in a way to me, and I'm sure it is to all of us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and this was the great thing about working at Doom Wad Station, and one reason why I would really, really love to see somebody take up the reins on that, and I would even support them, and even do up to half of the article just to kind of, match their work on it. But working at Doom Wad Station was a great way for me to just totally immerse myself into the community and everything that was going on. And it was a little bit overwhelming at first, trying to keep up with not only Doom World, but the zdoom.org and Xandronum, and trying to keep up with all the miscellaneous sites like Doom Nexus and One Man Doom, and all that type of stuff. But at the same time, I had a long list of links that I would go through every single week. I had this long list of links that I would go through, and I would click every single one of them, and I would just check to see if that main page had been updated. And that's really all you have to do, because when a page is updated, there will be something on it that says, like, this page has been updated at this date. And so basically, I would just go through all these pages and just look at them and try and keep up with the current news. Always visit the recent news page if that particular website had it, or just the main page if they didn't. And of course, a lot of the links that I was provided with were just totally dead links, like Deep Sea Editor and stuff like that. But even still, it takes 2 seconds to go ahead and click the link and just see that, something miraculous and crazy didn't happen. Because if you're doing, a sort of news type of source, every corner that you cut, could be a problem. But at the same time, all of that thoroughness really helped me to immerse myself into the community and what the standards were and what was actually going on, instead of just, my perfect little iWad world, as Kermit.
That's good. That's cool. And I always thought that was kind of fascinating about you, because I knew you were like kind of new to the community. I know you I think you've only joined maybe like a year or two ago, but
I think it was 14.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I didn't even know that. But
I think I was a registered lurker for a year. I don't remember when I actually started posting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I was really fascinated when I first met you, because I think the first time I really made contact with you was when you wanted to work on Mutiny with me, work on the first level, and that was pretty exciting, because you actually, I could tell you thought really hard about it. You've been really fascinated with this kind of stuff for a pretty long time, and that's pretty interesting to me, because I know a lot of people that are kind of joining the community, it seems like they've been attracted to it by Doom 2016, or just they managed to find out about this community some way or another. Maybe they found out about Brutal Doom or something, and they just kind of show up and they want to play stuff, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
Something funny that I've noticed since you're talking about this, and this isn't something I've ever really thought about before. Before I say it though, real quick, I have wanted to say to you for a long time, I don't even know why you gave me credit on that Mutiny map. I know I did the start of the layout, but you kind of sketched that all out beforehand.
That's not entirely true.
I never really felt like what I did had much impact on the actual end design. I could see a couple areas that I had designed that remained, but at the same time, I felt like most of that was basically me just mapping out what you had sketched out on paper, and that I don't know, that kind of.
Well,
I appreciate the credit. I guess I did, invest some time into it, but at the same time, I always kind of felt guilty about dropping out of it, and I never told this to you, but I dropped out of it because I was spending too much time writing This Week in Doom. It was eating up too much of my. Like I said, Doom is only, and this is why I want to see two people, write This Week in Doom or write the New Stuff Chronicles or whatever, goes forward from here.
Yeah.
Is because it was eating up too much of my time, and then I was also working on THT with Z0K. I was working on a map with him, Worm Hell, and I barely had enough time to even work on the map with him, and then the map that I was working on with you and Jimmy for Mutiny. There were periods of time where it was like 2 weeks, a month, 2 months where I wasn't getting the map, and I was just like, I got this other map that I'm investing a lot more time into. It's just me and him, whereas it was you and Jimmy, because I didn't realize what the situation was there either. But that's why I dropped it. But I felt guilty about it, and especially when you gave me credit for it, I really felt guilty about it because I didn't feel like I did nearly enough to deserve that.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. There was a lot of people that were kind of in the same boat. When I started the project, a lot of people were already involved in their own mapping projects and their own community projects and stuff. So a lot of people didn't really get, even though people got credit, they really didn't do a whole lot, or at least that's what they would say. And what I do think is that when talking to you about how we would go about this really contributed to how we would actually. So maybe if you didn't physically create the sectors and stuff, that would really stand out in that map.
Well, the exchange of ideas is definitely priceless.
Yes, that was an extremely important part about designing that map, because even though before we actually really got into it, I didn't really have a clear image in my head what I wanted to do. But you did create a little bit of a test of what you think this type of map would look like, and I wanted to kind of build off of that, and you kind of came up with the original idea for the starting area, and we kind of worked together on it. And even though maybe you didn't create all the sectors for it, discussing it was very important.
Yeah, well, see, and that was one thing that was really cool, but that discussing didn't really continue as we continued the project, which really sucked. But on the other hand, my work with Z0K, we were, since it was just the two of us, we were discussing the whole time, and that is one thing that I loved about Mutiny, and I loved about my work with Z0K on Worm Hell, and even with Diddy, on what was that BFG, Big Freaking Guardians, for THG as well. What was just the collaboration, the whole collaboration thing. I think it's awesome to collaborate with another mapper and just see how your styles mesh and complement each other, and try and bring the best out of your own style and hope that they bring the best out of their style to the point where you mesh well and complement one another and accentuate each other as compared to conflicting with each other. And just that whole process was awesome. But what I was going to say before, with newer mappers, I think that something, and I'd never really thought about this before, but when you're new to Doom World, at least, because by the time that I had joined Doom World, I had all these ideas for maps that I was going to build, and I didn't know nothing about source ports. I mean, source port, what the hell is that? I used to play vanilla when I was young, and I played vanilla for very, very many years. And then I got Doom 95 at some point. I don't remember when. And then eventually at some point I got Z-Doom. Probably because Doom 95 stopped working on some new computer that I got with a new operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was using Z-Doom, and by the time that I had started mapping, I was just using Z-Doom. I thought that Z-Doom was just the next evolution of mapping, and I think that probably a lot of hermits would probably look at this the same way, just because it kind of makes some sort of intuitive sense. I mean, you think about it, you would think that most games get better over time and introduce new features, but as just a hermit, you're probably not going to notice the little things like, the extra air control, or the better movement, or the fact that hit scans actually work the way they should, or things like, I shouldn't say that. I like the way of the vanilla way, but hit scans work the way that intuitively they would in newer games.
Right.
I guess that kind of puts it a little better.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you think about all this stuff, and so when I was mapping, I mean, I started mapping. I think I made my first map in vanilla, just because I didn't know any better,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started mapping from there. I think I went to Z-Doom and Hexen, and I think I stayed there, and because I at some point UDMF had come out, and I looked at it, and it was like really confusing looking, and I was just like, fucking Hexen's fine with me, and so I'd stuck with that. But as a new mapper, you have all these crazy ideas of stuff that you can do that's really cinematic, and
Yeah.
you have these kind of I'm going to call them dreamlike ideas, in the sense that they're broad pictures that you want to paint, but at the same time, they're not necessarily things that correspond well to vanilla Doom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like one of my ideas that I really wanted to see happen in a map, I think, and I still think this would be really cool, is and it would have to be a Z-Doom map set, of course. I mean, much as I love mapping for Doom, and as much as I love the mechanics of Doom and just doing stuff that shouldn't be able to be done, something where you go into like maybe a cavern cave area, and you're at the bottom of some large area, and you finally get to the top of it, and you're starting to go down like a passageway, up high, still in the cave though, and then like a hole busts through the ceiling in the top, and water starts rushing in and just slowly filling up the area, and of course there would be a current right where you are pushing out into that large area where you just were, and that large area would just fill up. And it's a pretty simple concept, but to translate that into Doom is something that, I mean, I would struggle with even today, and I've been mapping I've been mapping for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, that's a complex idea, and that is possible. I think you could probably create something like that in Z-Doom. I would think so. In my experience with Z-Doom, I feel like pretty much anything is possible.
Well, yeah, me too. But at the same time, even just trying to picture that, I mean, you have a lot more mapping experience than I do, and I mean, but just trying to picture that in Z-Doom, I mean, picturing all those sectors, I mean, because you're gonna have 3D floors there,
Right.
They're gonna have to fill. Right. And I don't know Z-Doom's new way of doing stuff. Like when I mapped for Z-Doom, it was the Doom and Hexen thing, and you're using control sectors to make water, and swimmable water and stuff like that. And so to make something like that rise doesn't seem like it should be that difficult. But you'd be having to do that over a whole bunch of sectors, and of course you'd have to keep them in sync with one another.
Yeah.
And what about if you have 3D floors in there? Because if this is a Z-Doom map set, we should really have 3D floors. I'm sorry, but we should.
Yeah, you really should optimize everything you have.
Well, you know what really sucks, and this is something kind of random, and I'm sorry. But
no, it's okay.
Maybe the Himmador is speaking to me. I don't know, but there was a mapper that was around. Maybe the last time I saw him post, I think, was a year ago. I did a collaboration with him actually, sometime when I was somewhat newer to the forums. His name is Pablo Jenner, and he made a Doom 1 map set, first just a Doom 1 map, and he put out a thread that said like hey, I don't want to complete this, somebody finish it. And basically, like, all he didn't want to do was he built the map the way that he wanted to, he detailed it the way that he wanted to, and he just wanted the monsters placed. And
okay.
I got him to go ahead and change his map over to Boom format, and then I went ahead and placed monsters in there. And there wasn't much that was separating his map from Z-Doom to Boom. It was all like mostly a flat map, but it was like a circular type of map. And he had a lot of newbie mapper mistakes and stuff like that. But I felt like helping somebody at the time, and I love monster placement. That's one of my favorite parts about Doom mapping.
Cool.
It kind of sucks because at this point I don't get to spend enough time doing it. I spend too much time detailing areas, which is something that I don't like doing. And and I don't get to spend enough time just placing monsters. I love placing monsters. You know, they're like our pieces in chess. But so he had this map, and I went and put the monsters in it, and I think we got a couple people to play it, and it was, you know, kind of nice. I mean, it was, you know, for a new mapper's release, you know, it was fairly successful. I mean, fairly successful in the sense that you had like 2 people playing it. It wasn't like, you know, a map like, you know, Foresight, where, you know, there was, you know, all sorts of people streaming it from outside the Doom community and whatnot.
Right.
But he put out a second map a little while later. And this map, he decided that he wanted to go with Z-Doom again. And he used a 3D floor in it. But his 3D floor was just like some little compartment that had like, you know, some shotgun ammo or something like that. You know, like right below a pathway.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, it really added nothing to the actual layout or gameplay of the whole thing than if you would have just stuck it off in a sector where there was void. And it was really a shame to see him go ahead and do that, because there was other areas in the map where 3D floors actually could have been used to a really cool effect, but they weren't. But then he had that sector that there was the 3D floor usage, and of course he had some translucent windows and stuff like that. But that can be done in Boom.
Yeah.
And he put it out there the same as the first map. He wanted somebody to complete the monster design. And I didn't have time to do it at the time, because I think that was right after I just dropped out of Mutiny. And I was trying to devote all my time to Worm Hell and This Week in Doom. And at some point I had to drop out of This Week in Doom a couple of times while I was writing that. That was kind of a shame. But nobody wound up putting those monsters down. Just something real quick and easy. I mean, I don't know. Some people have trouble putting down monsters. We're all good at different things.
Yeah.
We take our own knowledge for granted. I shouldn't say quick and easy, but still, just something like just putting down the things and designing the gameplay of the map. You know, somebody couldn't even take the time to do, and that map is probably still sitting on Doom World somewhere, and nobody's ever taken the time, and unfortunately, not even the author himself, to just put down those monsters and put down some weapons and some ammo and some health and a player start. I think there might have been a player start already, but just put down the basic stuff just to make a map. And I'm not saying that the map that I made from, you know, for the first one was all that great, but at least it was just something, you know, just something fun to just run through. And but the point is, though, is he released a Z-Doom map. He released a Z-Doom map that didn't use very many Z-Doom features, and it didn't feel like a Z-Doom map. It didn't look like a Z-Doom map. There were a couple of spots that looked pretty nice, but they didn't look like their competition. And I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. It's a terrible thing to say, terrible thing to think. But we all compete with one another when we make maps. We really do.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, there is. I mean, you want your map to shine, so you want to make a map that that is just better than other people's, because you want, if you're really interested in mapping, you do want to be the person that makes the best map. So you just keep working at it, and you want to kind of outdo each other.
Yes, and it's not some, you know, Wang measuring contest, you know, to see who makes the best maps. You know, just the same as, I mean, ironically, see it, and I mean, of course, I'm not one of the best mappers, so I don't know, but I would take a guess, and I would put money on it, that the best Doom mappers, probably not even competing with one another. Just the same as the people with the highest rep on Doom World probably are not competing with one another. But at the same time, we all have this illusion that, you know, there's like fishing going on, or that there's, you know, the mappers competing with one another. But when you get that high up, I think it doesn't matter quite so much. But as far as for those of us who are just average, or who are maybe slightly above average, you know, or maybe even well-known mappers like yourself, but who are maybe not quite as high up there, no offense, of course, but as like Skillsaw, you know, who puts out like Ancient Aliens and everybody's like shitting a brick.
Right.
You know? But, I mean, for all of us, like, we want our mappers to be better than everybody else's, not because we want to put them down or because we want to feel better, you know, about ourselves than everybody else, holier than thou and all that. It's because we want that feedback to improve. Because without the drive to improve, we don't have a hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm sure that I probably do right now when I say that my whole Doom hobby is all about improving my mapping.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love. That's what I love to do. I mean, it's just a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah.
It's great.
That's
And
that is an interesting observation you made, though. Well, let me make sure I'm understanding this right. You think that like that more popular mappers really aren't competing with each other as much as like more average mappers. Is that what I'm understanding? Like it seems like that like more popular mappers are more likely to help each other than average mappers. Is that kind of what you're saying?
no. I'm not saying in a competitive sense and in a hostile sense. I mean,
Well,
even though I want like let me put it like this.
okay.
Even though I want my maps to be better than yours, I would not sacrifice a good friendship. I would not sacrifice a chance to have a nice collaboration and just have a good time.
Yes.
Through helping your project be as good as it can possibly be, even if it means it being better than mine. If you make something that's better than mine, it just means that I need to get better.
Yes.
But I mean, when I say that about the notable mappers, just the people that are like really high up there, I mean, Skillsaw could, just make a speed map and probably thousands of people would play it.
Yeah.
But, me or you, I mean, I can't say you, but if I make a speed map, I would be thrilled if two people played it. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was a speed map that I actually cared about, and Skillsaw's speed map was a speed map that he just shat out and didn't give a shit about, hundreds of people would play it. And it's not just because of his name. It's because people know that when Skillsaw produces a map, he has quality in it. I mean, he's put in that time. And I guarantee you that a map that Skillsaw wouldn't give a shit about would probably still turn out better than a map that I would care about. But it's only because of the fact that he has a better skill with the map editor. He's learned how to use it, and he's learned what makes a good map. But he's been doing it for longer than I have. I mean, I've been mapping for almost 10 years now, but half of that time wasn't even with the community.
Right.
So half of that time might as well be cut in half.
Yeah.
If not more.
I never really thought about it that way. That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I just, so I just think that as far as, I mean, it's once you get popular enough for that, and that's something that most of us will never have to worry about. So for most of us, it is somewhat of a competition, though, to just constantly keep that strive to improve. I mean, see, the thing is Skillsaw can keep improving, and he can keep getting better, and it'll keep getting better for the rest of us, yes. But he doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are up there with Skillsaw? How many people are up there with Megadon? How many people are up there with Ed? How many people are up there with all these people? How many people are up there with Essel or Lupin X?
Yeah.
How many people are up there with all of them? I mean, there's not many. So they make a map. They already have all that skill and knowledge that they need to build it, and to build it well. And it's up to the rest of us to figure out what they're doing right.
Yeah.
And to figure out what we're doing wrong. And it might not even be so much as what we're doing wrong, but just what we're not doing as well as we should be.
Yeah, well, that's what I try to do as when I like write tutorials and stuff. I try to like kind of give people an idea of what.
I enjoy reading your tutorials. They're always something nice to think about.
Thank you, I do appreciate that. I do I do put a lot of thought into it, and I do try to like keep things kind of concise and explain things in a way that makes sense to most people.
It's a lot more work to type up stuff like that than people think.
Yeah,
it takes time.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't have as much time. I don't have as much time for mapping anymore, so I like to. I don't really see any reason. I've spent so much time thinking about what makes a good map and reviewing people's maps, and I do. Since I don't have as much time to make maps anymore, I don't have any reason to keep all that information to myself. So I like to kind of help people out and give them a little taste of what stuff that I would consider to be really powerful.
So you're like the infomercial. You're like the infomercial I see late at night I'm rich right now. I'll teach you how to get rich. Buy my book.
I guess you could say that. I
Nah,
I
but
don't like to think of
I
myself
mean,
that way, but yeah.
I see where I see where you're coming from, man, and it's great that you go and you take time to put that out there. Like a lot of the time when I type something up, I underestimate the time, especially like if I ever have to like say how long it takes for me to type something up. I always tend to underestimate that time,
Yeah.
just because of the fact that I mean, even if I know I spent like 3 hours on something, I'll say it only took me two, just because of the fact like I mean I'll spend. I mean, even if it's just something stupid, like that I shouldn't even think about. Like when I post something on Doomworld that's gonna be there, like, I mean, of course it'll be buried in 2 weeks and nobody will remember it. But at the same time, it'll still be there forever,
Yes.
or for the conceivable future. And I mean, I usually sit there for a little bit and think about it, and reread and reread again, and of course, through all the process of rereading, I'll usually wind up adding a whole bunch of extra crap in there that I won't have thought about.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just the way it goes. But I mean, at the same time, like, I mean, it's like I just lost a post that I was gonna make the other day. I played 4 out of 9 of the levels of this Heretic episode 1 replacement that was released a little bit ago, and they were okay. But at the same time, uh, it's a Z-Doom map set, and there was no reason for it to be a Z-Doom map set because it was Heretic and Heretic format, and but I mean, of course, there was a couple of custom textures and stuff, map info and
Yeah.
certain things like that prevented it from being a vanilla map set, or at least a limit removing map set.
Mm-hmm.
But it was it was a Z-Doom map set, and I mean, it was simplistic. It struck me as a mapper who still has a lot of room to improve. And I typed up this whole long thing of feedback. I recorded the first 4 levels that I played. I recorded my FDAs for them, and I typed up all this feedback for all the levels, breaking down the encounters, everything I thought was good. Because I try to balance out the good and the bad. Because I don't want to just shit on somebody's creation. I want to tell them the part. I want to tell them the parts honestly that is bad, but I don't want to do it in a way that is shitting on their hard work.
Yeah, you don't want them to be discouraged.
I mean, like I said, I was a hermit for 5 years, or maybe even more. Actually, it was definitely longer than 5 years. But I was a hermit for a while making maps. Okay, and by the time I joined the community, I knew my shit, but I didn't know my standards. Okay,
right.
And it would have been totally right for somebody to have shat on my map set, and it would have been totally, completely true. But at the same time, I don't think I would have been ready for that.
Yeah.
And I try and remember that, and I try and put myself in other people's shoes. It's very important to treat people as you would want to be treated yourself. And so I try and remember that, and I don't want to shit on their map set, so I try and mix the good with the bad and point out as much of the good as the bad as I could. But the map set overall was, everything was very simplistically designed in terms of visuals. For a Z-Doom map set, that's not necessarily a good thing. And even the encounters were typically, on flat terrain. It would be like one group of mobs that you would be facing. Like, for example, the old, here's a tome of power and a wand, and here's a group of mummies, or here's a group of Ophidians with that tome power and the wand, or here's a group of mummies and some time bombs, and these are really fun ways to start off maps, but it's a very poignant representation of how the encounters throughout all of them, just the overall maps were designed. And they were, and that they were all very simplistic, and that the mapper had a lot of room to improve. So, I tried to, describe, break down each of these encounters, and I had a really, really long reply. And maybe the problem was just that the reply was too long. I had four spoilers in there, one for each level, because I had a video in there. By the way, the post your Doom video thread and the post what you're listening to threads, I've started putting my stuff in spoilers because all those videos loading at the same time is just too much.
Yeah, it
Like
happens to me too. Like my web browser gets like really fucking slow when I load
it,
up those pages.
it
I don't even look at them anymore.
it's time for everybody who posts in those threads to just start posting like something that introduces your song or that will make people click on the spoiler, and then putting the video in the spoiler. Just I
Yeah,
mean,
public
it's too
service
much.
announcement.
Well, I hate to say it. I really, really, really hate to say it because Ling did such an awesome job with new software. It's so fantastic.
Yeah,
But the loading times are definitively longer.
yeah,
They are. And I hate to say it because he did probably as good as could have been done by anybody. But, when I mean, on the old software, loading all these videos might not have been quite so bad. But combine that with the new little bit of extra, like half a second or so, and then the whole thing just takes a long time to load. I mean, it takes a good like 20-30 seconds sometimes to load that Doom video thread or the post what you've been listening to thread. Like, I mean, as far as like being able to actually like post what you want to post in there, like I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit.
yeah.
Uh,
It's just a fact of life. I think it's just the way the internet's going. The technology is moving faster, so that I think people assume that you have a really powerful PC, but I've experienced that too. Is that I do a lot of my forum reading and posting through my phone. And what I have noticed is a considerable drop in my battery life from using Doomworld as compared to
oh
how it
yeah, the
used to be.
battery life will definitely go too now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's kind
But
of lame. I
and
can't spend as much time using Doomworld as I used to.
and the data has actually gone up a little bit too.
Really?
It's
Yeah,
not too bad, but just a little bit.
but enough.
But
Yeah.
so I'll definitely give Ling a lot of credit. That data, excuse me, sorry. I'll definitely give Ling a lot of credit that data has not gone up by too much.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was one thing that I was worried about. Just I mean, like I told you earlier, I don't remember if that was on the air or off the air, but I only have 2 gigs on my phone per month, and that stuff will go really fast when I'm using like YouTube and stuff like that. So
Right.
I mean, it's nice that I can get on Doomworld like at any point throughout the day. I mean, because I don't get on Facebook. I was a hermit. Mapping for 5 freaking years. In Doom, which is like my main hobby. Actually, it is my main hobby now.
You
I
and
used
me
to play
both,
music
man.
a lot. Now, I used to play music a lot, but I haven't even put my drum set together in probably like 2 years, which is terrible. I shouldn't even say that. Those words shouldn't even come out of my mouth. But regardless, though, I mean, I was mapping for a long time, and I mean, it's just
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, but
know.
yeah, Doomworld has changed a bit, and I mean it's okay. It's all
Yeah,
for.
that,
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff involved too, and I'm really happy about it. I really enjoy. I enjoy the new Doomworld. There's a lot of cool things about it, like being able to follow people
it
and
really is.
get notifications when people quote you and stuff like that. So it's cool to keep track and things like that. That's all very great stuff. I also
It,
especially
it,
like.
de- it definitely is more convenient to be able to keep track of what's going on. That was what I was gonna say. Like being able to plug into Doomworld just all the time. I mean, I don't get on Facebook. I don't
Yeah.
get on, all these social networking sites. Like there's a lot of the young girls at my work who, they'll be like up on my Snapchat and all this, But
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't understand what that left swipe, right swipe shit is. I don't know what that is. Like, I mean, there was even like a couple parties that I went to with some of the younger people from work. I'm 27 now,
Yeah.
and some of the younger people from work. I go to a party with them, and the weird thing is there's only a couple of, well, I guess a few years difference between me and them, but just the it feels like such a large generation gap because like I'm not into the whole like social media like type of crap, but like as far as like Doomworld goes, like yeah, I'll social media on Doomworld all fucking day because I mean if there's a chance that I could log in and see somebody posting like, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, Dragonfly will whore his pictures out When he is detailing up an area, he will post up like a picture on like the Poster Doom picture thread like every day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, every single day that I go on there and see like a picture from Dragonfly of some really cool looking area, and I'm just like, damn, it looks awesome. You know, that's great. That's fantastic. That's like one of the best parts of like going on Doom World is just being able to like see what all the other people are doing with the hobby that I care about.
Yeah, well, when you go on Facebook, everybody's posting pictures of them at like parties and like at bars and shit, and it's not really like anything that's any.
Do you know how many people? Do you know how many people the average person has talked to at parties that they will never meet again
Yeah.
for the rest of their life? I mean, like for real, like. Can you even remember half the people? Like, can you even remember a tenth of the people that you personally have talked to at parties?
Out of like the last like 10 parties I've been to, I can remember like 2 or 3 people. It's ridiculous. But yeah,
that's close enough.
But like when you're like drunk and like hanging out with people, like you can kind of like interact with people, but like when you're like
don't get me wrong, you'll have some great conversations and there'll be some fun times, but you're never gonna see those people ever again.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter,
and you don't really connect with them.
Yeah, well, even if you do connect to some degree, I mean, there's a difference between a momentary connection and a long-term connection.
Yeah,
you know, and you can momentarily connect with somebody on any number of things, just at any point throughout the day. I mean, you can momentarily connect with somebody who completely disagrees with your every way of life, just over something stupid like watching somebody trip in a puddle.
Yeah.
I mean, the momentary connections are very fleeting, and they're very interesting and nice to have, but they're very fleeting and quick to fade away. I mean, the long-term connections are more about what matters, and it's one reason why I mean as much as I do like Doom World, I mean, it's important for everybody to have a good social life outside of Doom World.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to be able to go out and be social with adults. I don't remember if it was on or off the air that we were talking about this earlier, but being social with adults it's a very important aspect to be able to have. I mean, just to be able to go out and just talk to people. I mean, like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. But you know what? Let me hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, just even something simple like that. I mean, it might be somebody that you're not even expecting to make a new friend. You don't even care if you make a new friend right now, but all of a sudden, boom, there's a new friend.
Yeah, but it's also like really cool that we have something like Doomworld, because it is in a way like it's closer to Facebook and Twitter than it used to be, but it's also
it sure is now.
Yeah, but but there's also like 1,000 people here who all have a mutual interest in the same thing. We all like playing Doom. And that's what's like that's what makes it so fascinating, because when you go on Facebook, you're surrounded by like people you may be friends with, and you might connect on some other things, but generally you don't always have the same interest with everybody. And it's cool to be a part of this community where we're just all like talking about Doom and what all the new mods that are coming out and all kinds of cool stuff.
That's the great thing. That's the great thing about Doom World is we all just get on and just nerd out about Doom. I mean, just
hell yeah.
That's what we like.
Yeah. Speaking of nerding out about Doom, we did talk. We had kind of like this private message exchange where you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about this tutorial that I made called like the 5 steps to starting a new Doom map, and you mentioned these connections between writing and mapping, which I wanted to get into, because I do think that there's, for me, I'm very interested in like effective storytelling. So I'm like very interested in like movie scripts and things like that, and I pair a lot of that with mapping, because there's a lot of very interesting things that they do in like TV shows and in stories in order to effectively communicate a story, and I think that's very important in mapping, but it's a little bit more artistic that way.
I think that with a lot of things that we do, in terms of just activities, people like to differentiate them between a left brain being an analytical activity or a right brain being a creative activity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an old saying that I was taught, and I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard a few teachers I know say it in school a few times, and it was science is one of the most creative professions. And we always think of science and scientists as these analytical people who have, are all left brain, no right brain. And they're just all about analyzing all the little details and coming up with everything that they can. But science is one of the most creative professions. If you're not creative enough to come up with the
really complex
even
questions and stuff.
Well, not even. Well, first off, yes, a lot of life is about asking the right questions. But even just the way that you test it, because the way that you test it has so many variables that are tough to control.
Yeah.
And you might think that you have all of them down pat, but once you release that, once you release your research paper of your study, out there, for the rest of the people, the rest of the scientists look at, there's going to be a lot of dissenting views coming in. You got to be able to defend that. You have to be able to say, this is still true because of this. And that we went ahead and, accounted for this beforehand, and this is, what the result is.
Mm-hmm.
Science is one of the creative professions. And just the same, doom mapping as well as writing, we like to picture it as this really creative process. And if you're a left brain person, you just can't be creative. If you're a right brain person, you just can't be very analytical.
Right.
And a lot of the world, we like to take as black and white. It's the same reason why I'm very skeptical on a lot of it. Same with the whole concept of intelligence in the first place. But I believe that you are what you make yourself. We're all captains of our own helm.
Yeah, I believe that too.
We all have the capacity for good and evil. We all have the capacity for being analytical, and we all have the capacity for being creative.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what you work on. That is what is going to influence it. As with my conversation with Goat Lord, which maybe I should probably respond at some point. I would like to say I respect Goat Lord's point of view. I respect it. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. There is something to be said about a genetic predisposition. And break down what a genetic predisposition is. Genetically, you don't need to define that. That's your genes. That's something you're born with. You have no control over it. It takes away all the responsibility and all the credit away from yourself. It's just something that you're born with. You have no control over it. So, not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
But and a predisposition. Well, a disposition means that this is something that you're going to do, or this is something that you're doing. Predisposition means that this is something that you might do. You could be talented as all get out on playing the drums, but if you never pick up the drums or you never listen to music, you're not going to be talented. You're not going to be able to pick up the drum, a pair of sticks and play a drum set.
Yeah.
It just ain't going to happen. You're not going to know nothing about some diddles and some, none of that, man. But
yeah.
The thing is, so the whole talent, nature versus nurture thing. It's all, just bullcrap. But as far as with writing and mapping, we this creativity is something that we work on. I think that a lot of us are born kind of in between analytical and creative, and school tends to teach us. I guess depending on maybe what subjects you like as a child, or maybe what subjects you like the teacher in as a child.
Yeah.
Which is something to think about right there. I always like to talk smack about our education system just for our math teachers.
Right.
That I don't think our math teachers are engaging our students enough at a young enough age. Because I liked math because I always viewed it in the same sense that I viewed Sudoku puzzles. Even though Sudoku puzzles I heard of when I was a teenager. But even still, just like little puzzles that you saw, they're just quick little fun games, I used to like the math problems, man. I still do. And but you got to have teachers that are engaging to get your students interested in something. If you don't have a want, or more so an imposed need to evolve, then you will never evolve.
Yeah.
Much the same as populations of animals in nature. You yourself as a person, you will never evolve. You'll never grow and learn if you are not imposed with that need. Me, when I was mapping on my own, I never really grew past the point of the community standards because I didn't have that imposed need to. I was mapping for myself. I didn't know what the freaking standards were, and
Yeah.
a student with math, or maybe somebody trying to learn to map, brand new, or somebody trying to learn to write. I mean, a lot of things, patterns happen all over life, and being able to recognize patterns is one of the signs of quote unquote intelligence.
Right.
So, I mean, just learn to look for those patterns. You got to, and there's a lot of patterns in life, and that's one of them. It's just that life is what you make it. It's the thing that it's that stupid question that you got to answer in that paper when you're applying to all those colleges. When you're 18, and why is life what you make it? Write this paper about it. Give us a couple of paragraphs. Show us what you're all about. And I mean, really, it really is. It's kind of a stupid thing to think
about. Yeah, but as far as like when it gets into like the parallels between writing and mapping, I do think a lot.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
You're right.
I do think that there's a lot of elements of like telling a story that are also important in a map. Because like when it comes to like telling stories, I do think that there's important elements of like trying to create suspense and trying to give the player kind of a feeling of what they're supposed to be doing there. And
oh, most definitely, yes.
But in writing, you're using like descriptive words, whereas in a map, you're creating an environment, and you're kind of creating that visual for them. And that's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, that's very true. And to some degree, you kind of got to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you're telling them, and then tell them what you told them. And it's the same with your mapping. You got to kind of introduce the concept, a little bit to a degree. I remember a map that I had made with Diddy, the Big Freaking Guardians for THT. I had this really elaborate idea for this puzzle that we had, and that got implemented in the map. That was there were these little worms in the map that little sector worms that moved around. I don't know if you ever played the map or if you ever found the secret, but there were these little sector worms that moved around the map, and when you started off the map, there were a couple of books that were lying around kind of next to the starting room that basically told you, like one of them had a picture of a boot with some blood on the bottom that said "kill 3," and some picture on it, and then the other one had some names and some little pictures of the worms on it, and it wasn't the best representation of what the puzzle was. Is kind of my point.
Yeah.
We tried, and if we would have had more time to work on it, we might have come up with something better. But that's beside the point. It wasn't the best representation of what the puzzle was, but this puzzle was something that I like. I like fancying the idea of trying to come up with something that's never been done before, and I think I've come close a couple of times, but I've been beaten to the punch. One thing I did that I thought was really cool, but apparently Ribix had done it before, was in boom formatting, dynamic architecture that is difficulty setting independent, or difficulty setting dependent.
Oh, okay.
So so let's say on easy and medium mode, you might walk into a room and have a fight, and then on hard mode, you might walk into the same room, have the same fight, and there might be a wall that rises up that locks you in the room. It wasn't there on easy and medium.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of a very simple example of it, but that concept can be used to something, a really fucked up idea. I'm sorry, a really messed up idea for a map set that I wanted to do.
You can swear, it's okay.
Was called Megawatt in a Map. All right.
Okay.
And this was going to be at least 16 maps, because 16 is quote unquote technically the megawatt number. So at least 16 maps, all within one map.
Wow.
And this would be totally possible to do. We have maps that are, 500 lines or less. This could be, you think about it, you have about 32,700 something lines. line deaths, or like 64,000 something or 65,000 something side deaths.
Yeah, that's like your max or
But
something, right?
yeah, is your max. And of course, I would be aiming for boom format, so it wouldn't be vanilla or anything. But I mean, you could very easily do like maybe some sort of hub. I mean, the tricky part would be just coming up with the connections between the areas. But theoretically speaking, using different difficulty settings, you or even not using different difficulty settings, but you could even reuse the same type of like maps and rooms and rearrange them and kind of make like a new map out of it. Of course, change the visuals maps. So like this map, this room might be square and look like a tech base in one map, but then in the next map, like maybe you go through a different. All you have to do is cross one line def to change to totally change the map. To start a voodoo doll moving that totally changes the map. So you cross one line def in the little hub area that changes the map, and now the same area that was a square tech base can be like a circular hell arena because we raised up a couple of thin walls. I mean, you could very easily change stuff around it, and of course the flats can be changed with mechanics. But, it would have been a really,
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept to kind of like design a map that is like completely shapeshifted depending on what difficulty setting you play. That would especially make like difficulty settings so dynamic, because I think what most people tend to assume, and I'm one of them, I'm very guilty of it, is when people like if you play a map on a lower difficulty setting, that just basically means you're playing with less monsters, and that's not always.
Well, that's one thing that I very specifically try to avoid. And I guess while we're talking about difficulty settings real quick, I will mention that I've been floating the idea around in my head, and I've talked to a few other challenge mappers about it, and all of them disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But I'm starting to become of the mindset that because everybody in the Doom, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people in the Doom community are this UV or bust type of mindset. And when I say, and with a big emphasis on the or bust part, with especially with regard to the challenge map sets, like the Rubik's type of map sets, and even the Ancient Aliens, which I didn't find Ancient Aliens to be like, the most difficult maps. I definitely had some tough parts, but I mean, it wasn't like a Stardate 26 or 27. It wasn't like Sunlust necessarily. I mean, so but even with stuff like that, you have all these people that are these UV or bust type of mindsets, and I mean, even with a couple of the maps that I've made, where I mean, UV is supposed to be the toughest thing that the map can throw at you. That's it. That is hard mode. I mean, it's labeled hard mode. Yeah. That's it. You got normal, you got easy, and you got hard.
Yeah.
That's all you got. So UV is the toughest mode that you got. So, but all these people are of this mindset that if you don't play UV, you're not getting the total experience, because that's what the IWADs were, and the IWADs were very easy. And even for me, as like 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, playing Doom, I used to always play on UV. I mean, I don't think I ever played. I don't think I ever even completed a level in any of the IWADs on I'm Too Young to Die or Hey Not Too Rough. I mean, I don't even know if I've ever even beaten one on Hurt Me Plenty. But
it seems like there's not a reason to.
Well, when I was a kid, I was when I was introduced to Doom, and I asked what the different difficulty settings were, I was told that it was just the number of monsters that you face. So I was like, okay, I want more monsters. And I just went through fighting more monsters. And that was just it, I mean, I'm not saying that I was a great Doom player when I was a kid. I saved a lot. I, died a lot. But, I just went through and I enjoyed fighting more monsters. That's just how it
was. When I first got into Doom map or Doom, playing like Doom PWADs and stuff, I was a massive like save scummer. I would pick up like a soul sphere and get like 200 health, and then I would save, or I would save before like pretty much every encounter and load if I lost any health. I was a really nasty player. But I did play through like everything with ultra violence, and I was managing to get through a lot of stuff. at least outside of like Alien Vendetta and like Kama Sutra and stuff, I would manage to get myself into like these positions where there would be a trap that I was pretty much not able to survive.
Oh yeah, you save yourself into a hole.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah. Well, see, and that's one thing that I messed up on when I designed Wormhill for THT was that I wasn't, you know, I mean, I had been with the community for maybe a year at that point, but not necessarily long enough for me to, you know quite the importance of demo recording. And I think that a lot of people like to discount the importance of demo recording, but I think that demos are like one of the most important things as far as like feedback for maps and even just for dooming in general. I mean, it's a video without the size of a video.
Yes.
How can
yeah.
you argue with it?
That's how I feel about it too. I love the fact that we can record demos and just kind of like trade these little files that are like less than 100 kilobytes.
What other
and it's
game
just like,
lets you do that?
I know there really isn't. There's nothing else there's really nothing that's very just because the way that it just stays intact and you can just trade them and they're very simple. You just put them in a zip file and send them to the other person very easily. Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah, and it's also like it also really this is kind of silly and off topic, but it is like very significant in explaining how like time travel and stuff would work because like you know how they say like don't mess with history because then it'll alter the future, and that's and like Doom is like a perfect example of that.
I'm a firm believer in if we go back in time, like okay, you saw that Twilight Zone episode, like the newer Twilight Zone episode when it had Forrest Whitaker hosting it.
Yes.
And there was a lady that it was like one of the very first episodes that came out for it. It might have even been the first, where the lady went back in time to kill baby Hitler, and she wound up giving the family a new baby. She killed baby Hitler, and then she killed herself, and she gave, and in the process, somehow she gave the family a new baby that became baby Hitler. And so basically, like her going back in time to kill Hitler and prevent, the Holocaust and all that from ever happening made it happen. I'm a firm believer in the irony of life. I mean, life is so ironic in a lot of things. It's the same as like, I don't want to get too big into religion, but like, if there is a hell, it's not a fiery place. It's not, fire and brimstone and all that shit. It's whatever is the most. Did you ever see that Simpsons episode where the Treehouse of Horrors and Homer got sent to hell? And
yeah, with the toaster. Yes.
And Homer had to eat donuts forever. And
yeah, I remember that. Okay, I was thinking of a different episode, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, and the joke of that episode was eventually the devil got tired of feeding Homer donuts instead of Homer getting tired of eating donuts. But even still, like that's kind of the way that, like, if there is a hell and all that, like that would be the way that I would picture. I'm pretty sure that it would be like some ironic form of punishment that would just remind us of how much of a dumbass we are on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
What else would really be more fitting? Like, in all honesty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but that's just kind of more of an entertaining idea. But anyway, back to kind of like the whole topic that we were talking about a little bit ago about the whole parallels between Doom and writing, and there's a lot to be said about mapper's block, and
yes.
there's a lot to be said about writer's block, and I'm gonna share with you a really quick story about somebody else that I know in the Doom community personally, and I'm not gonna name any names,
okay.
But this person, and I can relate a lot with this, so I'm not judging with this. I mean, even though I know they won't ever hear this, but because they're a hermit who doesn't have the internet so much, but even still, I can relate to this very, very much. And they get home, and programming is their life, and they love to program. Their job is programming. They go to work and program. Sit in front of a computer all day and work on the programs for whatever their company is.
Okay.
And then they come home and they work on programming for Doom and doing all that sort of shit. And not only programming for Doom, but also programming for their own personal hobbies and the personal hobbies of their friends that might have machines that need to use specific programs that are built to, run things, and they'll go and they'll program these things for their friends and for their family. And they get home at the end of their day, and they sit down in front of their computer, and I can relate to this so much.
Mm-hmm.
They sit down in front of their computer, and they open up that program. You work for 15 minutes, and then after a little while, your eyes start to glaze over, and you start to get tired, and you start to lose focus. And once you start to get tired, it's really easy to lose focus. It's really tough to maintain that focus.
Right.
And that's kind of where the start of Mapper's Block begins. At least to some degree. I mean, there's other ways to start it as well. Such as getting into something, and the old story of the archer at the competition. The archer that was very good at the competition, he thought too much about hitting the bullseye that he missed.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about trying for perfection and messing yourself up, and you look at the best athletes in the world at what they do, and they don't think about what they do. They actually say that if you're competing with somebody, and this is something that I need to try in a death match sometime. Doing death matches are a lot of fun, but I don't know how much you do it personally, but
no, not really. But
you need.
I know enough about it though.
It's a hell of a lot of fun, but this is something that if somebody is ever like really whooping your ass, this is something that will help to throw them off the game, and just some old psychology trick, and of course it's not going to work every time, but it works to some small degree, and that small degree can be exploited. Ask them how they do so well. Get them to think about their technique, because when you do really well, you're doing it off of instinct. You're doing it off of what you already know in your muscle memory and all of that. It's a lot like when the doctor sits you down at his office and he hits you on the knee with that little pointy hammer thing, and your knee, or your leg kicks up.
Yeah.
Before your brain even realizes it. Well, that signal gets sent to your spine, and when it gets sent to your spine, immediately your spine, being a very main part of your nervous system, it sends a signal back to kick your leg up, because that's part of your reflexes. There's some reflexes that we're just kind of born with, and so that's why your leg kicks up before your brain even gets that message. And so working off of your reflexes is exponentially faster than working off of like when you have to actually think about what you're doing. And while it might be kind of easier in a way to macro a situation, when you're thinking about everything to some degree, when you're in the moment, especially something that's as fast paced as a Doom deathmatch, you need to just go. And it's a lot the same as with mapping and with writing. And you get yourself, and to go back to my story about my buddy, he gets himself in front of his computer, and he starts thinking too much, and he starts looking at the computer too much, and too much looking at the computer, he gets tired. You start losing your focus, and you lose your focus and stuff like that. All of your potential work goes out the window. We're creatures of habit. When you start to let yourself stare at that computer screen and get tired while staring at the computer screen, well, guess what? Eventually, every time you stare at that computer screen, you're going to get tired.
Yeah.
Because that's just psychology, and that's part of Mapper's Block. And one of the main things that they tell us with writer's block, and it's the same to go with Mapper's Block, is when because there's something to be said about letting your ideas build up, creativity build up, and thinking about stuff, all that good stuff. But you can't sit around and let the ideas come, because at some point you're going to wind up sitting around. That idea's never going to come. You need to put pen to the paper. It's not what you want to hear. It's not what you want to do. Even the person who's saying it has probably been there and doesn't want to do it either. When they get there, but it's what you got to do, and you got to power through it. There's been a lot of nights where I myself come home and I wanted to do some work on a pad, sit there at the computer and just do a little bit of work, and I start to get tired. There was an interesting study that I saw. Somebody posted this. A lady was given a presentation about FPS game, it was in that thread. The FPS games make you smarter,
Oh,
which
okay.
is comical, to say the least.
Yeah.
But this lady, she's a scientist, and she, her team of people, they had done some research on it, and they had found that the act of playing the FPS games teaches you to multitask in a way that actually makes you better at multitasking. And then she compared it to people who multimedia multitask, which is to say, like what me and you might do when we're mapping for Doom.
Right.
So you have your map editor open, you have Doom World open, you have the IRC open, you have Discord open, maybe you even have some music open, or you maybe even have something else open. Maybe you have the TV on, or the radio on, or maybe I'm listening to WXR, whatever the case may be. And, but all of that, input coming in, that's all different, and none of it's tied together. And I really wish that she would have spent more time connecting the dots in that presentation that she gave, because I connected a lot of dots that she didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not because I'm a smart person, and it's not because I'm like great at recognizing patterns, but it's just because what she was saying resonated with me, and I thought about it. And I mean, of course, your brain isn't a muscle, but your brain, much like any muscle, the more that you work it, the better it will be.
Right.
And it's important to think about stuff, and it's important to use your brain. And I'm sitting here thinking about the stuff, and she's talking about all this, and I'm connecting the dots. And when you look at the FPS games, people are picking out these little tiny targets, and like, okay, you need to target this, or like you look at Doom. One of my favorite situations of I love the strategy of Doom. Strategy of Doom is just awesome. I mean, and I love making encounters, like mapping encounters that are unintuitive, totally unintuitive in terms of strategy. So, like for example, this is something that RDWPA posted on the forums, and he did so like a little bit after I put this in Wormhole.
Yeah.
But I've seen it in a few other places. But it's a very simplistic encounter, but it's just so freaking cool, man. And okay, so you have let's just take the most simplistic form of the encounter. So we'll take the least amount of monsters possible.
Okay.
And this is basically like exactly what RDWPA posted.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, so you have 3 monsters. All right, so player enters a room, you have 3 monsters. Okay, you have 2 mancubi and 1 pain elemental. You have 1 mancubi on either side of you, and the pain elemental in the middle. All right, so they create a nice little sandwich. Now, what do? Well, you can target the pain elemental first. That would be the most intuitive thing to do. But now you have 2 mancubi, which, I mean, 1 mancubus, you see his volleys coming. You could be like, 2 or 3 Doom feet away, and dodge them pretty easily.
Right.
But when you got 2 of them firing at you from 2 angles that you can't see both of them at the same time, I mean, you might not even see either one of them at a particular time that one of them starts firing, so you might not even know where those shots are coming from.
Right.
So the pain elemental would be a stupid choice to kill, just because of the fact that the mancubus or mancubi are going to tear you apart.
Yeah.
In the process.
This kind of sounds like what you were trying to say when you say like Doom is kind of like chess, because you, as a mapper, you're trying to, well, if you're a challenge-based type of mapper, you want to create a scenario where you want to...
I hate that term, by the way.
What? A challenge mapper?
Well, challenge mapper, or even, I mean, I guess slaughter mapper makes a little bit more sense just based on monster density.
Right, but, yeah.
Well, just the whole challenge mapper, like, I don't know, I think that UV nowadays, the modern UV should not be equivalent to the IWAD UV.
Yes.
By any means.
Of course.
By any means.
Yeah,
IWAD UV should be equivalent to like in between Hey Not Too Rough and Hurt Me Plenty.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt though.
No, it's okay. But what I was trying to say is that I was trying to link this to, because I remember you talked to me a little bit about how Doom is kind of like chess, and as a mapper, I'm actually starting to understand this now that you explain it, because it sounds like what you want to do is you want to put the player in a position where the monsters that they think they should kill first are probably the most dangerous monsters to target first. Or they would put themselves in a dangerous position by targeting that monster first instead of monsters that they might not otherwise usually play, which is kind of similar to something like chess, where you kind of want to lure the player lure your opponent into thinking that you're using this strategy, but you're actually doing a different one. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, yes, and that is kind of what I'm trying to say, and I guess my reasoning for that is that how many maps have you played where you see a pain elemental and I mean, who do you kill first? You know, I mean,
yeah, you always go for the pain elemental first because they're the one creating lost souls.
Yeah, and see, this was part of the problem in Wormhell that I did was that I tried to do too many of these encounters where when I map, and I tend to place monsters very quickly when I map. Like in all the speed maps that I've done, I've most of the time has been spent building the map and detailing it and all that kind of crap that I hate to do. And the stuff that I love to do, like the mechanics and the monster placement, I pretty much just shit out at the very end because, I mean, once you do it so many times, it's pretty easy to just think about like, what is this monster's role? What is he best in?
Yeah.
And something that's kind of upset me, ever since I've joined the community, with the people who have played my maps, is that I guess my monster placement is considered rude or dickish, and but the way that I approach it is just, what is this monster? Like, okay, if I want to put a monster in this particular spot, what monster is best suited for this spot? How will this monster affect the other monsters in the area? What is life like from this monster's point of view? I mean, and that's a little bit, kind of comedicized, or
yeah,
whatever the George Bush style word is for it. But but point is you got to think about that. And I mean, the more that you think about it, the easier it becomes to place those monsters. And something I'm trying to get better at as far as my monster placement, because of course there's always room to improve. It might be something that I really like to do and something that I'm comfortable with, as far as placing monsters in areas that they are most effective in. But it's not about placing monsters where they're most effective. This is what I didn't understand about Wormhell, and especially with the length of Wormhell and the fact that demo recorders aren't going to be using saves, which is bad for the length of Wormhell and the difficulty of the encounters. Is you want to encourage fun.
Yes.
As much as you want to encourage these monsters. I mean, because it's fantastic to be able to like. There are some things that are better in this world than opening a map and every single monster having a purpose. But it is fantastic to open up a monster or open up a map. It'd be fantastic to open up a Doom monster too.
Yeah, it sure would.
It's great to open up a Doom map and see that every single monster, like when you can just see the purpose that every single monster had. And it's not very many Doom maps that are like that. Even maps from established mappers and maps from people who are great at monster placement, because they'll put a lot of monsters in. But you'll usually see it on a map that has only like a handful of monsters, and like every single one of them just has a purpose, and like they make sense to be there, and like the map wouldn't be the same without them being there, or changing them else just wouldn't be the same. It's great to see that, man, because that's effective monster placement right there.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've actually been kind of working on a tutorial that I've been wanting to write about how to create effective gameplay, and that's kind of a pretentious thing to talk about because there's a lot of different opinions about what's good gameplay and what's not. But
I think it's art. It's art,
yes.
so there's multiple approaches to everything. There's a million ways to skin a cat. But in terms of, see, this is something that none of us really want to say, and so I'll just go ahead and say it.
Okay.
When people say the quote unquote right way to do things, they're talking about the most popular way.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe we don't want to say that. Maybe none of us want to say that we're selling out or any of that kind of bull crap. But okay, I didn't join Doom World to map for myself. If I wanted to map for myself, I would have never joined Doom World and just continued doing that.
That's a good point.
I mean, but the fact of the matter is that I joined Doom World to map to release maps to the community and for other people other than myself to enjoy. So I'm no longer mapping for myself. So even though and this is, I hate saying this to new mappers, and a lot of times I'll have to say what I don't want to say, which is map for yourself and do what makes you happy. But the fact of the matter is that you've joined Doom World at this point, which means that you want to be part of the community. You want other people other than yourself to play your map, which means that you want that feedback.
Yes.
You want to get better as a mapper. So you need to learn the standards. You need to learn the things that people want to see, and you need to learn how to improve as a mapper. And none of us are perfect. And even people like Skillsaw have room to improve. And it might be tough for any of us to imagine how Skillsaw could possibly improve. But I'm sure he has room for it somewhere. And
I'm sure he
damn
knows.
sure so
Damn
sure so do the rest of us, man. Come on now. I'm nowhere near that level. There's a lot of room for me to improve, and there's a lot of room for all of us to improve.
Yeah, what I mean by he knows is that I think when you're a map designer and you're a pretty popular one and people tend to like your stuff a lot, you're probably not. I don't know if most people are so full of themselves that they know that they're just pretty much a perfect mapper. There's probably some degree that they think there's things that they can improve on, and
Well, I've always lived by the mentality that if you ever stop learning, you're dead.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's how I think too. I think if you're there's always something that you don't know enough about and you can work on. And
I'm sure that the people at the top of the ladder are there because of the fact that they recognize that.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure that skills. Well, but this goes back into what we were talking about earlier about the people at the top of the ladder being, I would think, more likely to help out.
Yeah.
In terms of stuff like that. Just for the fact that because they don't have to worry about their shit. Their stuff's already good to go. They're good. They're fine.
Yeah.
They could not improve and be fine.
Right.
Whereas the rest of us have that drive that we need to keep improving. It's the same as the reason why I haven't responded to Goat Lord in that one thread yet is because of the fact that I just have to roll my eyes at going over the whole nature versus nurture argument, for the 1,000th time and typing it out and spending an hour or two typing this, long reply out that may or may not need an additional reply or 5 afterwards. And
yeah,
it's time that, I would much rather spend mapping for Doom or playing somebody else's Doom map and giving them some feedback or something like that. But I would feel if of course, if I was one of the top mappers up there and I could just release a map and everybody would like it, I'd probably be more likely to donate my time towards other people, and doing this. But of course, I can't say that definitively because I'm not there. I don't know.
Yeah. What I was trying to say earlier is that I do want to work on this gameplay tutorial type thing, and one of the things I wanted to mention was that you're not always trying to. The thing is, we've played Doom long enough that we've pretty much fought every monster. We know how they behave and things like that. So when you're creating gameplay, you're not. The monsters aren't enough. The player isn't playing the map to fight against the monsters. They're playing against your mindset. They want you to set up the traps for them and to create these scenarios that are difficult to deal with.
Yes.
Because the monsters alone are just not enough. They're just we've killed enough of them. We know how everyone behaves. We've killed thousands of mancubi and pain elementals and arc
and part of this comes down to how monster placement is affected by the level before you ever place the monsters.
Yeah.
That's very important, and it's one reason why when I give advice to new mappers, and this is something that I didn't realize for a very, very, very long time, but I learned it from actually DM mappers. And by the way, I want to talk to you about some DM mapping here in a second.
Okay.
But you should always. Okay. Do you play any musical instruments?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, that kind of sucks. It'd be nicer if I guess there was something. But basically, like, whenever you learn something, like, for example, a musical instrument, or maybe if you've ever done a sport, uh, there's a right way to do things and an intuitive way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, the proper technique is not what you want to do at first, and it takes a long time to get that proper technique down. And it's very, very similar with mapping. And I'll just use a quick example here, just because it's for some reason randomly on the tip of my mind. With wrestling, when I was in high school, I used to wrestle.
Okay.
And wrestling came down to, of course, it's by weight class, so there is something to be said about, I can't discount additional weight for power. But I wrestled guys who were, a few pounds heavier than me, or much more muscular, much more lengthy, with more torque and leverage and all that kind of good stuff. And,
Yeah.
I wrestled all sorts of different people. And one thing that it came down to more than anything else, more than the ability to exert power, was the ability to use proper technique, because that proper technique would allow you to use your weight and that other person's weight against them. Like, for example, if you have somebody on the ground, instead of just like, let's say I have somebody on the ground, they're on their stomach, I'm on top of them, maybe I'm trying to do something, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm just laying on top of them, just like, over a ragdoll. All right. It's going to be pretty easy for them to just pick themselves up and stand on up. I mean, there's not much weight on them. But if I'm on my toes and my chest is resting on them, with my butt high in the air, I got a lot of weight resting on them right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to just pick themselves up. And when they go to pick themselves up, it's going to take them more time, which is going to leave them open for me to do whatever I got to do. That ability to use that proper technique really pays off in the end. And it's the same with mapping. You look at mapping and you look at DM mappers. What made Aeon DM and Progdual and a lot of these other stuff by that particular group of people? What made them so successful? All right, it was the fact that they would go. It was the way they designed the maps, and the fact that they tested them so much during development. All right.
Yeah.
They did the detailing last. Why did they do the detailing last? They did the detailing last because once you do the detailing, you're kind of fucked.
Yes, you're stuck with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you spend like 15, 30 minutes, an hour, on some sort of detailing, and now all of a sudden you find, like, holy crap, this whole area needs to be changed.
It's too late to do that at that point.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really difficult just to make the first move. But then even once you finally commit and make the first move, now you got to spend that 15, 30 minutes to an hour to make it look better again. And so you do the detailing last, and that's something that's really, really insanely difficult to do, especially I think for newer mappers. And that's one reason why I actually I've been involved in the Joy of Mapping events. All three of them so far.
Oh, cool.
And I heard Jimmy earlier today that he's kind of wanting to. I've been wanting to ask him about that too, so I really appreciate you getting him to talk about that, by the way. But I guess he wants to go towards more informal type of things that just take place over like a week or whatever. And I don't know how excited I am about that. I mean, I joined the mapping events just to learn to become more efficient at mapping, and to be a slow mapper. And when I map for myself, and when I map within my own type of way that I like to map, I do what a lot of people do, which is design an area and then detail that area and see where it's going to go from there. And that sounds great and all, and maybe you'll come up with some great atmospheric, cinematic type of areas, Z-Doomy type maps. But you're not going to have that gameplay that you need, kind of like Z-Doomy maps. And you run into problems there. And it's a lot easier to make an area that is ugly but functions well, beautiful, than to make an area that is beautiful but functions poorly, function well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're very analytical on how you look at how maps should be designed. I'm very impressed by all the stuff that you've been thinking about, because I think about this stuff a lot too, and it's super important that it's
It's been
not
a fun
just.
conversation so far, man.
Yes.
It really has.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this. Um, the monsters alone just aren't enough. It's how the level is designed, and it depends on like how much cover you get, or like whether the monster's elevated on like a platform they can't move from. So the player has to get closer by themselves,
Yeah.
because the monster's not going to walk towards you himself. And there's trapping methods and all kinds of different things, and that's what makes gameplay so exciting. Is that you kind of have to the gameplay isn't just in the monsters themselves. It's about how the player present or how the mapper presents them in their map.
Oh, most definitely. You have to have multiple angles of attack for the
Yeah.
monsters. I hate to say it, but the way that I kind of always used to look at maps, and this kind of goes into the reason why I designed monsters to be effective instead of fun, which is one thing I'm working on, of course, now. But uh, is you kind of picture yourself as you're the one placing the monsters, you're the one designing the level for the players, so you're kind of like the icon of sin. You're the devil.
Yeah.
The monsters are your friends. Those are your pieces. They're your chess pieces for the player to play. So
You're the
you're
dungeon
placing these
master.
monsters. Yeah. See, that's one thing. I never got into Dungeons and Dragons when I was younger.
Neither have
But at
I.
the same time, I kind of wish that I would have, because it seems like it would have been really interesting. And same with like the I got to see a couple of videos of like the old school Doom board game, the Doom 3 board game.
Yeah.
Uh, you know what I'm talking about, like not the new one, but the other one.
Yes, I know what you're talking
Well,
about. Yeah, I've seen it.
yeah, I mean it looks like it's a hell of a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
I never got into it when I was younger. But even still, like yeah, you're straight up, you're the dungeon master. Like you're played like this is your map. You're making it. Like you need to place these monsters to be effective. And you look at the IWAs. If the IWA is supposed to be your example here, the IWAs were placed were and this is one design about the IWAs that I do really like, and that I do try and take away from, even though I often break away from it, is that the IWAs try to maximize the use of each individual monster. So they had a lot of encounters that were based on having a few monsters. There were very few slaughter type
Yeah.
encounters in IWAs, and so each monster was meant to be sort of maximized in his potential. Whereas when you're making a map, you can let's say I have this corridor right here, and I'm thinking, okay, should I put a monster in this corridor? Maybe let's say the player just exited a room and they're entering a straight, bland, boring corridor going into another room. The exact thing that we're supposed to try to avoid. And I'm like, okay, well, I should put a monster in this corridor, maybe something to just shoot. Hell with it, fun, something fun. And all right, so now I'm thinking, like, should I put like a Hell Knight? Should I put a Baron? What type of monster should I put here? Well, there's not much that can happen in a corridor.
Yeah.
I mean, what monster are you going to maximize in there? There's not much that can happen. But at the same time, I mean, you could always just go and throw a swarm of zombie men just for the hell of it, because it's fun, mow them down, like. But at the same time, sometimes just throwing in like one shotgun, or one revenant,
Yeah.
or just some sort of monster that's really quick to dispatch, given the fact that he's not going to be that much threat to begin with. Because you got to think threat to time ratio here.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I say time, I mean time to dispatch, or time to kind of unravel like the whole thing. Like even in terms of like an entire set piece. Like how much time does it take to unravel the entire situation for the amount of threat that you have, and how much time does it take to mop up the cleanup afterwards to get on to the next area? And it's the same with going into like DM mapping. You have how much time does it take to finish dying, respawning, grabbing a weapon, and getting back into combat?
Yeah.
Which is a very important thing to think about. But as the mapper, for playing these maps and placing these monsters, you really want to try and maximize their effectiveness. And that's one thing I always loved about the Outwatch was just that they placed these monsters to be good within their environment. And it's a shame that the environment that they planned for was a keyboard only environment. I know that people used mouse and keyboard back in '93 and '94, but I mean, including Romero, but the average player didn't.
Yeah,
and they really
I certainly didn't.
They planned it for a keyboard only environment. You can see it with E1M8. The Barons. I mean, and I will say, for every time that I see a Baron used improperly, people try and say like, well, maybe this Baron was.
Yeah, it just makes you cringe.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's not so big of a deal, but I'll just. I mean, I hate to do it. I really hate to skip. Excuse me. I hate to skip monsters, but I'll skip monsters in a playthrough. And part of the reason why I started doing that was Doom Mod Station, because I didn't have time to play everything.
Yeah.
But though. I mean, you see a Baron that's used like in a non-threatening way, in a way that he's not going to follow you later and present a threat later. Holy crap, this guy is like reversing the street. But you see a Baron that's used, in this way that's not really threatening and that doesn't really provide much aside from just eating ammo.
Right.
And that's good. But you look at the original use of the Baron. The original use of the Baron was you had this arena that was shaped like a star.
Yeah.
And you had two of them come out first off. So at any point in time, you'd have potentially two different angles of attack that they could be attacking you from. And I don't know about anybody else in '93. I think the first time I played Doom was '95 or '96. But I was using keyboard only. So that star-shaped arena was actually somewhat cramped for me, and it was somewhat easy to get stuck in the corner of that, and to have the Barons close in on you.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that invisibility sphere, the blur sphere, was actually kind of useful back in that day.
Yeah.
But you also had, in addition to the Barons, and in addition to the kind of tight environment, because even though the star was pretty big, the actual room for stuff to pass through each other in the middle area, because in the middle of the star that was kind of big, you had the squares where the Barons came out of that kind of took the middle of that. So it was actually a little bit of a cramped environment. And then you had the Spectres coming in, and all the barrels over there that were all kind of a hazard.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot going on with that arena, more so than just a flat corridor with a Baron standing in front of it, one single Baron. I mean, so when you see something like that, I mean, I hate to say that I cringe at something like that, just because of the fact that RDWPA messaged me, PM'd me a little while ago, and we were talking about Baron use, and he's saying that he is a little bit more diegetic something, some D word. I know. Recall versus recognition. All right, I recognize it, but I don't recall it.
Right.
As far as what it is, but meaning of it though, as long as you can interpret the meaning of it, that's the most important thing.
Yes.
But he's kind of more ambiguous about the use of Barons now, just because of the fact that I mean, sometimes it is good to have them in a way that just I guess throw a Baron into a room just to accentuate that room, but I don't know if I can agree with that. I mean, in a way I do, and in a way I don't. Because if you're just talking about a singular Baron by itself in a room where there's plenty of area, that if anything, that's just going to be one of those moments where I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to be like
time-consuming thing.
To me, a Baron's best use, and when I say best, I mean there's a lot of really great uses of Baron.
Yes.
But to me, the absolute best use of a Baron is in front of a group of Hell Knights. That's the best use of a Baron. Just for the fact that they won't end fight, and the player is more likely to shoot the monster in the front, which is going to be the Baron, which automatically makes it stupid.
That's
They're shooting the
interesting.
monster
Yeah,
in the.
because like you kind
I
of
mean,
have to, as a player, you kind of have to like shape. You have to like kind of guide the Hell Barons out of the way so you can kill the Hell Knights. To like if
exactly.
what I'm picturing is like kind of like you know how like Civil War Minutemen where they just kind of have like these lines of monsters. So if you had like a whole horde, if you had like a whole horde of Hell Knights and there was Hell Barons in the front, you don't want to like you if the monsters are closing in on you, you don't want to fight the hardest ones first. You want to fight the weakest ones first. So you want to like
Exactly.
you want to push the Hell Knight or the Hell Barons out of the way so you can get to the Hell Knights because they're easier. And as far as like timing goes, you want to get the easiest monsters out of the way first. That's an
Well,
interesting concept. Yeah.
and here's the really fun part though. Now let's add other monsters into the mix. All right. Now, if you want infighting possibilities, while still being able, while still, of course, needing to put out damage yourself to avoid being swarmed, what if those barons need to be distracted by other monsters? Like I'm in a, so let's say there's other monsters from, just any other angle. It doesn't have to be the back. It can be anywhere else. Let's just say the side. So it's a fairly easy encounter here. Maybe you got barons and hell knights in the front, and you got like some let's say some easy like some arachnotrons, over on the side. They're all firing at you. Well, maybe you might not want to fire at those barons first, because if you damage them, they're not going to get upset at those arachnotrons for hitting them. So now you want to avoid fire on the barons and focus specifically on the hell knights while the arachnotrons kill the barons.
Right.
I mean, see, that's one of the beautiful things about Doom to me, that like it's so simple, but the mechanics of it allow for such complex, just beautiful encounters. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, all the interactivity between the monsters, the infighting, and all of the infighting relationships, and just how some monsters, like even like really otherwise really simple monsters, can make some situations really complex based on how you design the map.
Oh yeah, well, and the whole mechanics side of Doom, like I said, monsters and mechanics are my two favorite aspects of Doom design. Like, this is a pretty simple setup, but like something that I always thought was really cool, like with the whole sound propagation system. You need two lines to block sound, right?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's say that you design a map, okay?
Right.
And this map has a whole bunch of different areas, and you're using sound blocking lines to block off different areas, or maybe these areas are physically cut off from one another, like there's a lift that's closed, and so the sound can't go through there, and so you have areas that the sound is not connected. Okay, so now you got a player that's going to play this map. Well, I always like to make the joke of kill all the pacifist trolls. And that's partly because of the fact that my Doom style of playing is slightly pacifistic, that I like to disassemble encounters before necessarily fire. A lot of times I screw up my FDAs and die because I'm too pacifistic with the way that I approach. Instead of approaching an encounter and just going in guns blazing and trying to do as much damage as possible right away, I'll enter an encounter and try and not shoot the monsters in case I need to infight later. And sometimes, because I'm a sneaky type of person like that, I guess, having playing what I expect.
Yeah.
I guess it winds up backfiring a lot, but you get back to this.
Well, it depends on how the map designer thought about it when they were making it, because some people will test their map a certain way, and perhaps they didn't have another tester play it, so they test their map the same way every time, and they design the encounter assuming that the player will play the same way they do. So you might,
most
so
definitely. Yeah.
So like you'll go into a map and maybe you won't go guns a blazing. Maybe you'll just go like kind of like checking out, see what's going on. And in doing that, you end up waking up like hundreds of other monsters by accident, because they assumed that you would kill the monsters one at a time as you approach them.
Well, that's one other thing that's I think is always excellent in Doom maps. On the mechanics side of things, is traps that are have these sort of mechanical locks. So when I say like a mechanical lock, I mean something like, let's say we cross a line def.
Right.
And this line def, it would, of course, have to be a repeatable line def. But let's say it's just a WR, floor lower. Okay?
Yeah.
So something pretty simple here. And but the thing is that this floor is tied to a control sector that will not let it lower until that control sector lowers. But that does not mean that we can't lower that control sector later and use this WR trigger at a later point. And I love that about Doom mapping, and on the whole mechanic side, is that we can make these kind of mechanically locked situations where the player can cross this WR line 1,000 times and it never have any effect. Yeah. And then they do one thing, and all of a sudden this WR line is all doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, it really, that's always been one of the draws of Doom mapping to me is just setting up these encounters in ways, and it goes back to what we were saying about these monsters being used effectively, is you got to set them up to be used effectively in the right way. Yeah. I mean, if you just kind of throw them out there, like they're just going to be, in a hallway room, doorway camping, corner camping, whatever the case may be, it's not going to be fun. But if you throw in a couple monsters, from different angles of attack, you teleport in some from behind or just something. And I like the mechanically locked or the locked arena type of scenarios. I know a lot of people, it wears on them pretty quickly. But I like those sort of things because they force you to deal with something and they cut off the possibility of doorway camp. Because in all honesty, I hate to say it, I try to avoid doorway camping, but if I'm at like 10% health and no armor, and I see a doorway, that thing is my best freaking friend right now.
Yes.
I don't care what you say. If I can make all the monsters attack me from one angle instead of from 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, then I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's just
in dire situations like that, I'll utilize every little gameplay hack that I can think of. And just.
I hate to say it, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I can be a sneaky bitch when I'm playing a map, and if I'm really tight with ammo or health, I'll utilize. I mean, I'll cause all the infighting I can possibly do, and I'll utilize every little trick I know in order to avoid taking damage and all kinds of little things like that.
And that's one reason why I've become a lot of kind of like an FDA type of player and just kind of a recorder type of player, is the fact that it takes away the whole save mentality and just being able to save stuff or being able to just save at any point throughout the level. And occasionally I'll still save. I recently had problems with my PR boom. I guess I have to upgrade to 2.4.1.5 at this point. But I recently had problems that I couldn't record from to, save a game while recording a demo in Count Level 9, and then be able to reload that game, and record on from the demo. I recently had problems with my setup on that. I'm not sure if I just maybe drank a couple too many beers and I just don't remember hey, beer puts holes in your brain, all right?
Yes, it sure does, man. I can't play Doom and drink at the same time. I have to play sober.
I'm not gonna lie. I would love to see. I mean, the problem is that this would just be exploited by people who are just attention-seeking whores. But at the same time, from the people who I trust enough to just take it seriously and just have fun with it, not give a shit about it. Just having fun. It would be fun to have do some demos for some maps where you just drink a lot, or even. Or even something put it on, because PR Boom allows speed control. Put it on 200, percent or 300%. That's just slightly faster than normal, and don't run at all. And just try and record the demo and get through the level. With that.
I did do that once. I think it was one of my birthdays or something, or maybe it was you know what it was? Doom's 21st birthday. I did a drunk replay of Doom 1, and I recorded a demo of it, and I don't I think I feel like I was a mess, but I don't know if you can really tell from watching it. I wonder if you could like watch someone's demo of them playing Doom drunk, and if you could like tell that they were drunk. Like maybe they would just like run past monsters that were like pretty obviously there, and then just like not realize that they were there later or something. I don't know.
Well, the problem is with the whole drunk thing is that it depends on the person and on their tolerance. Because if somebody has a low tolerance, then they're gonna get so plastered that they can't play at all.
Yeah.
Or they'll be not plastered enough to where they'll just play pretty normal. And then on the other hand, you'll have the people who get so plastered that they just, you know, still like that they play pretty normal. Because I mean, it's the same with any humans are creatures of habit.
Yes.
So if you do anything for long enough, if you're I don't want to say an alcoholic, because it's a bad word.
Yeah, but there's some people that are like functioning alcoholics too.
Well, if you drink a lot, then drinking kind of makes you normal to a degree, and at that point, drinking might just be like no big deal, and you might just be recording demos like normal. But at that point, maybe just drink a whole hell of a lot, and maybe you'll just make like one or two tiny mistakes that will barely be noticeable anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean that would be the one problem with that. But that's why I would think maybe something like recording at 200 to 300% would be kind of funny, without running, just to make it like really fucked up.
Yeah.
In all honesty, you really don't want to run too much at 200 and 300% anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
But
hey, listen, we've been recording for like almost 2 hours. This was an awesome show. I really enjoyed talking with you. Is there anything you want to cover real quick before we wrap this up? And if so, I mean, I really enjoyed talking to you, so I think we should do more episodes together in the future.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. Is there anything you wanted to cover real quick before we wrap this up? And if not, if there's things we didn't cover, we can still cover them in another episode if you'd like.
Oh yeah, we can always cover them in another episode. One thing I would really like to cover, because this is something that I would really like to see happen at some point.
Okay.
And I'm working on it a little bit, but it's taking the back burner for now while I work on other stuff. So I mean, I don't want to get a whole new project tagged. I mean, if this is something I have to do completely by myself, fine, I will. In time. But I want to see. You talk to Captain Clever about some characters.
Yeah.
And he shares a lot of the same ideas that I do. And I started this project. I just called it HTDM. Not a very descriptive name, but a project that's basically, we have a couple of problems in the heretic community. One, we don't have very many good maps to death match.
Yeah.
It's a major problem, and I really would like to remedy that. But also, we could always use more single player map sets, and that's always nice. So I started working on this map set, and like I said, I'm a really big fan of mechanics and thing placement. So I started working on this deathmatch map set, and I got the idea that it wouldn't be that much extra work to just go ahead and design a single player element to it without affecting the deathmatch side of it at all. And it's really not. It's pretty easy to do, actually. And so I did that with one of the maps, and I would really like to go ahead and take this idea. I have a couple of other maps that are, deathmatch ready. They're not detailed at all. Like, I wanted to talk about, layout, doing layout first and detailing last.
Yeah.
We'll do that some other time. But, the layout's ready for them to be tested in deathmatch. Now, I would like to see it take off, not for the fact that it's my project. Even if I had to abandon it and work on somebody else's project, I would really like to see some sort of heretic project take off that would establish somewhat of a new standard for the single player side to bring it up to Doom 2, because Heretic is best compared to Doom 1.
Yeah.
I think that most people will agree with that. And something to bring it up to kind of the Doom 2 side, and there's a lot of things in Heretic. There are a lot of things in Heretic. The ghost mechanics alone are very complex in Heretic, which is awesome. And then, of course, you also have the artifacts like the tome and the time bombs, and and of course the chicken. And the chicken brings chicken tunnels, which is also really cool. And you can have enemies in vanilla Heretic using dehacked. Well, or no, I think you do need something a little bit more than dehacked to do it. But you can have enemies that throw the effect, the chicken, the morphovome effect that will turn a player or other enemies into a chicken. I've accomplished that in vanilla at this point with mostly KB1.
Wow.
Accomplished it. And, I kind of rode his coattails on that. But what you call it though, it's it's doable. And there's a lot of really cool effects in Heretic that are doable and that we could use to bring sort of I hate to say a new standard because I hate to be so pretentious, but you know what I mean though. Just some sort of new gameplay elements that a lot of at least a decent amount of people in the Heretic community that like to play Heretic maps and that actually play them, and that are active in the community can agree, like, yeah, these would be some fun things to design some map sets around. And maybe we can design some maps, but if we design maps, we need DM maps too.
Yeah.
And it's not much work to go ahead and add a single player element to a DM map. It doesn't sacrifice anything on the single player element, single player side. It doesn't sacrifice anything. You can still make the flow that you want and everything that you want just fine. So, I think that we could kill two birds with one stone here, and it would be a really cool thing to do. And I'm sorry I talked about that a little bit too long. I apologize, but I think that if Captain Clever, if he hears this, and I know Not Jabba wants to do something with Heretic, and there's a few other people. PVS wants to do stuff with vanilla Heretic, but there's a few Heretic fans out there, and if we could all get together and work on something, we could probably make something really.
Oh man, Fonze, you're such a positive person. I love having you on this show. This is a lot of fun to talk to you about, like all these cool gameplay concepts and all kinds of things.
Man, I just love nerding out about Doom.
Hell yeah,
Hopefully
man.
People have been interested the whole time. If people message you and they're like, "Hey, don't ever have that Fonz guy on again," I had to tune out halfway through. That's fine. I understand, man. But dude, it's been fun,
man. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna listen to them because I enjoyed talking to you, and I don't care if they don't enjoy listening to you, because this was a lot of fun. Okay.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so I don't know who I'm talking to next. I had some plans for tomorrow, but we had a little bit of a falling out. Some things came up, so I don't know who I'm talking to next, but we should be having more shows soon. I don't know if I'm going to be doing any more double features like I was doing today. It was pretty interesting that I had.
I'm sure it's a lot of work on you.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I'm sure that's a lot of work on you.
Yeah, well, a little bit. It wasn't too much though. This was a lot of fun.
Time. Oh, I'm sure it was fun, man. Yeah, the episode with Jimmy, I got to catch about the second half of it, and it was pretty good, man.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
That was nice to listen to.
Yeah, I love talking to people. I love talking to people on Doom World.
Sometime soon. Matter of fact, something that would be really cool, man. Maybe for one of your future seasons after you've interviewed everybody 10 times a piece individually. Maybe start having people on together. And actually one thing that I do want to say, man, I know DK expressed interest in talking about multiplayer mapping. I know you were talking to Doom Kid about multiplayer mapping.
Right.
In that one episode, the last time that you had Doom Kid on, and Decay had messaged me a little while after that on the IRC, and he was saying that he had sent me a PM at some point on Doom World, but it would be really cool if you got Decay and the group that made at least as much as could actually make the event. Because everybody has their own schedules, so not everybody's going to necessarily be able to get the same time. But if you could just get as much of that group that made Aeon DM and that new school deathmatch, material that was just awesome. If you could get them together and discuss the whole new school mapping style, I think it would be really, really awesome.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I did I did respond to that private message today. The thing is, I've almost every interaction I've had with Decay is he's kind of a jerk to me. So
sometimes things go that way, man. But at the same time, we're all here for Doom.
Yeah.
And even if we don't agree on stuff, and even if some of us are kind of dicks sometimes, we're all here for Doom, man. And if somebody has some knowledge that would be really interesting, I mean, sometimes it's worth it to figure out a way to make positive interactions.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll work something out. I'll have to talk to him more
Network.
about it.
Well, but even if it's not Decay that's on the show, I mean, even if it's the rest of the guys or whatever the case may be, that doesn't matter. But just, I mean, it'd be cool to hear them talk about the whole approach to new school deathmatch mapping, because I mean, a lot of us have played and seen a lot of old school deathmatch mapping, and we're very familiar with that. And it'd also be really cool to get some old school deathmatch mappers on talking with the guys who made Aeon DM. And I mean, there's been other notable, new school deathmatch maps released, but as far as like recent and people that you'd be able to find in the community easily right now, it'd be really cool to get like the guys with like Aeon DM and like some old school style deathmatch mappers, like Doom and whatnot, and to get them to talk about the differences between old school deathmatch and new school deathmatch. Not only in terms of playing, but also in terms of mapping. That would be some really, really cool material.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn about that, and the multiplayer community could use some help as far as mapping or mappers. And
well, you got to get players before you get mappers.
Yes,
that's the problem. That is the number one problem, is that the multiplayer community needs players.
Yeah.
Not first and foremost, before you can get mappers, you need players. And when people start drawing lines in the sand and acting like dicks to each other and saying, hey, you're new to the community, screw you, like, and that's one reason why I try not to shit on noobs too much. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody post something and I'll be like, hey, fuck you, noob. But I really try not to be like that. I mean, I'll try to at least give a reason and a way to improve. But when people do stuff like that, it's divisive in our community. It's not a good thing, and that's one reason why I try not to do that.
Well, that's good. You're a good person, man.
It's not good in our multiplayer community, especially. A lot of people in our multiplayer community have been doing this for years, and they're very competitive about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks when you start up a match with somebody, and after the first match of you getting your ass whooped, 5 to 30, they're calling you a bot and stuff like that. And I mean, that's pretty shitty. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, I mean, I can't imagine any single person picking up Doom Deathmatch for the first time and playing against a good player and doing any better than that. And I couldn't imagine anybody just, having played only for like, a few months or a year even, and playing against a really good player and doing better than that. I mean, there's a big skill gap difference between somebody who's been playing for 5, 10, 20 years and somebody who's been playing for less than one.
Yeah, it's very true.
And but that's why it's important for the people in the multiplayer community. And I mean, I can't claim to be huge in the multiplayer community. Sometimes I'm still kind of hermity and just don't even sign on to IRC for the day or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, like tonight, I haven't even signed on to the thing. But matter of fact, last week I don't even think I've signed on to the IRC or Discord. But it's important for us to all be friendly to people and to be welcoming. And I mean, same with like when I'm talking to you about trying to get you into doing some deathmatch for Doom. I mean, it's a lot. It's the same when you learn chess. When I was taught how to play chess as a young kid, I was told you have to learn to lose before you can learn to win.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Doom. You will get your butt kicked over and over and over, and you have to do it. That's the only way that you will ever learn. And but it's important for the person who is kicking your butt to be nice about it, and to keep encouraging you and to tell you that you're doing a good job. You're learning. It's a learning process. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot going on there. There's a whole lot, whether it's mapping for Doom, whether it's deathmatch, with chess or writing. I mean, there, any sort of, avenue in life that you're pursuing, there's a whole lot that's going to be going on in terms of doing stuff on a level that's okay for high schoolers or middle schoolers, in a level that's okay for adults
Yeah.
and professionals.
But
And
deathmatch for me is that it's not necessarily that I don't enjoy it or anything. I actually do enjoy it a lot. But I don't have there's not a whole lot going on. We know that there's not a whole lot of players in like in multiplayer game modes and stuff, at least in like old school regular deathmatch type stuff. So
well,
I don't.
that's why you got to find players that you enjoy playing with.
Yeah, you got to network with people.
Like Doomkid, I'm so glad that Doomkid was promoted to mod, in Doom World. Like that was awesome because Doomkid he's one of the reasons why I'm playing Death. Why I'm in the multiplayer community now. I probably would have joined at some point eventually anyway, but I mean, Doomkid he's awesome, man. I mean, even when I
Doomkid
disagree
is such
with
a
him,
cool guy. I really appreciate having him in the community. He's a great guy.
Dude, even when I disagree with Doomkid, or even when when I feel like he's made just a totally like ridiculous statement, like I still can't say that it's not totally reasonable at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's a generally cool guy. So like you can even if when he is like, I consider him to be like pretty rational pretty much all the time. But even when he does like say anything like kind of outlandish, who cares? I mean, he's an awesome guy,
Yeah, well, exactly, man. Well, I just mean like as far as like I mean, me and Doomkid have talked about a variety of subjects, and I mean even on the times when like I just totally just 100% disagree with him. Like I totally also 100% respect his opinion because he's just so cool and rational about it. Like I can understand exactly where he's coming from. Like it makes sense, and he presents it in a way that makes sense, and he doesn't stomp on other people, and trash on them and stuff. And that's one really awesome thing about Doomkid in terms of, also the multiplayer community is that Doomkid is like literally the perfect like role model as far as how we all should behave.
Yeah.
In the multiplayer community and trying to get people into the multiplayer community.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Doomkid doesn't get in there and kick your ass all over the place and call you a bot and shit. He goes in there and kicks your ass and says, "Hey man, you did a hell of a lot better this time than you did last time," and it encourages you to do better.
Yeah, that's the kind of environment you want to play deathmatch in.
Yeah, it really is, and I mean to some degree, there's the old conflicting argument of if you should go easy on somebody who's new. I don't think Doomkid does. I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe I was just that terrible when I started. Who knows? But at the same time, it doesn't matter if you do or you don't, because as long as your attitude is correct and you're presenting that correct attitude to the person that you're trying to get into it, like they're gonna want to keep coming back just for the fact that they enjoy being around you. This is like a fun thing to do. Go ahead and even if I die all over the place and I only get one kill, like I mean, hey, at least I had a good time. That's the important thing. Like,
yeah.
And that's the way that we all need to be. We all need to, kind of act that way towards newcomers and just encourage people. Just give it a try. I mean, it's really fast paced and it takes some getting used to, sure. But like once you get used to it, it's a lot of fun, man. I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there is a lot of stuff to cover in like deathmatch and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll probably have to find out some more like deathmatch mappers and players and stuff and get them to talk about it a little bit more.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, and there's probably not a lot of stuff that's very exposed as far as the multiplayer community goes. So I'd like to get into that a little more. Anyway,
I would love to hear some people talk about like strategy of like playing and how they deal with players. I mean, there's a lot of really sneaky tactics that you can do that are really awesome in deathmatch. Depending on the amount of people you have.
Yeah.
Playing. Yeah. And I'd love to hear. I mean, about the mapping side and the playing side. I think there's a lot of material to cover on both sides.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for your input, man. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed. I'm really glad that you've been enjoying this show, and it means a lot to me, and it's cool to hear your input and what you think we should do for the future, and that's something I'll keep in mind, and we'll probably get some episodes similar to that in the future. So anyway, I don't know who I'm going to be talking to next. I do have a lot of episodes lined up. Because I've been talking to a lot of different people, and I just made some. I just talked to some people today, actually. So we're going to be interviewing some more people. Well, not necessarily interviewing, but just having people on the show to talk about stuff that they consider to be interesting. And besides that, yeah, let's wrap this up. So if you want to be on the show again, I'd be happy to have you on again. And
yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, cool, man. Thanks for being on the show. And thank you all to the Space Marines who have been listening to this entire show. And we'll see you in the next one.
Take care.